Hello and welcome to the Digital Schools event for Bradford LitFest. My name's Joelle Taylor and it comes to me a great honour to introduce Potatoes, Carrots and Poetry with John Hegley. Now, John Hegley is one of the nation's most loved poets. I've known about him for the last 30 years, performing up and down this country and abroad. He's also released 10 published volumes of work and is considered the heart of British poetry. I'll let John Hegley speak for himself.
Hello, my name is John Hegley and I'm going to do some songs, a story and some poems for you. What is a poem? I wrote a poem called What a Poem's Not Poem, and I go through the alphabet and say some things that a poem's not. A poem is not an ant, but it can be quite short. B, a poem is not a banana, but there might be something under its skin. C, a poem is not a coat, but it may have some warmth in it. D, a poem is not a dog, and so it doesn't need a basket. E, a poem is not an endless pair of trousers, but it can be quite long. F, a poem is not a football shaped like a cucumber. G, a poem is not a great number of things. H, a poem is not a hedgehog, but it might be hard to get hold of. I, a poem is not an igloo, but it can feel quite home. J, a poem is not a jumble sale, but it might contain some rubbish. K, a poem is not a kite, but it might enjoy the wind. L, a poem is not a light bulb, but you can change it if you want to. M, a poem is not a monkey, but it can be quite human. N, a poem is not a nut, but you can give it to a monkey. O, a poem is not an P, a poem is not a prison, and it shouldn't feel like one either. Q, a poem is not a question, actually it is sometimes. R, a poem is not a radio, but you may have to tune into it. S, a poem is not a slot machine, but you may have to put something into it. T, a poem is not a toothbrush, so don't clean your teeth with it. V, or was it U? No, sorry, U. U, a poem is not an umbrella, but it can give protection. V, a poem is not a verruca, and I'm glad. W, a poem is not a wig, but you can wear it if you want to. X, a poem is not an X-ray, make no bones about it. Y, a poem is not a year-old bag of vegetables, but it can smell quite strongly. Z, a poem is not a xylophone, and it can spell words wrongly. So that's what a poem is not. Now, we're at the Bradford Literature Festival, and I've got the word Bradford here in my Scrabble thing. This bird here it's not a penguin. Some may think it's a penguin. It's called a guillemot, and this is the actual marking of the guillemot, which is like a pair of spectacles, and it's called either the spectacled guillemot or the bridled guillemot. And Joelle, who's going to talk to me afterwards, asked if I would do something about my glasses. Hello, everybody. My name's John. What have I got? I've got my glasses on. That's that. And so we're going to move on to the word Bradford now. In Scrabble, you're only actually allowed to have 7 letters, so this extra D is a bit of a bonus. And I've got a poem for each letter. B, well, no, sometimes I've got a drawing actually, but B is B poem. And in the B poem, I thought it would be nice if you did a buzzing sound. So if you can get a buzzing, those of you listening and looking, if you can do a buzzing noise, and let's get the level right. So can I hear you buzzing? That's it. And so if I go up, let's go up a bit. Down a bit. Got to get the level right. Out there. Okay, so you're going to do buzzing and listening at the same time. So I'm going to be the bee. I'm stripy and I'm wipey when I'm visiting the flowers. My wings sing buzz for hours, and ours is a happy old hive. I live in a colony. I like to get all polleny. And then you can stop the buzzing there. Now R is red. So B. So remember we've had B, and then we got red, and so red poem. And I'm going to try this because I was at university at Bradford. I lived in Bradford for 4 years in Yorkshire. For those of you listening, if you're not in Bradford, Bradford's in Yorkshire, and I'm going to try on this next poem a West Yorkshire accent. because I actually did my Bradford accent and somebody said it's more Barnsley. So I'm going to try my Bradford accent for Red Poem. Red Poem. Danger. Don't tip that strawberry jam in post box. Stop! Stop! If the post office van turns up now, you'll be so embarrassed, Dad. So we've had B, we've had red, and now amoeba.
Oh,
so amoeba, very, very small animal, little part of an... Hello, amoeba, I wish you were my pet, but you're not really big enough to be seen by the vet. You're a little blob of jelly, you've got no skin and bone. You're not a boy, you're not a girl, and you're not on the telephone. You're in another world, I cannot get in touch with you. I cannot pull your leg, you look a little bit like a fried egg. You're a long way down the ladder that evolution trod, but you can eat with your feet, or to be more discreet, obtain food with your pseudopod. And you don't have to have a partner to start a family. You can multiply by dividing, tra-la-la-la-lee. You're not so simple, you little protoplasmic pimple. That's A. First, yeah, A. So B, red amoeba. D is duck, and this is a drawing. So I think drawing's very important myself with your work, to have them in there. And sometimes I say to children, you've been drawing longer than you've been writing, so don't forget to you do your drawings when you're making your stuff. And so for D is duck, and I see this duck here, and so you see there's a little clip there for its beak. So these are these little clips that you can get from a stationery shop, and they're very, very useful. You make a little hole there. And I thought it'd be a little bit of fun, probably only a little bit, but some fun. If I pull the beak down, and then you can do the quack sound, okay? So get ready for a quack. Ready? Okay, that's that. So here's a picture of my dad. So my father was half French, the bottom half, and I'm very proud of the fact that I've got some extra bit in me, a bit of French. It's lovely. And so here's a picture of my dad walking the duck. Can you see? I hope you can see it. It's a bit of fun. So this is something I took an old photo of my dad. This is my dad in France in the 1930s. And my dad was quite an old dad, but I loved Dad. And Dad is there walking a duck. So take a photo, but only photocopies. Don't take the actual photos. And then I've did a drawing on it. And I've drawn Dad with a duck, walking a duck. And he's also got a cup of hot cocoa, but a bit silly because he's not got the lid on the cocoa. And it's, in those days, they didn't worry so much about health and safety, but he should have had a lid on that cocoa with that duck. So that's D is duck. F is frog. And this is another drawing. And this is a frog here. And there's a frog there, and there's a ladybird on its back. And this is, I think you see, it's going to just have a look at the ladybird. Yeah, can you just see the movement of the eyes there? Looking at the ladybird. And that's done by a little bit of gluing and sticking on the back. So that's a frog. So we've had, let's remember we had, what did we have? What was B? R, red, yeah. A, amoeba. D, F, frog. O is octopus. And this is an octopus poem. And in this word, octopus, some of the words rhyme with octopus. The octopus awoke one morning and wondered what rhyme it was. The octopus took a look at his alarm. Some of the words rhyme with octopus. Remember, the octopus took a look at his alarm clock-octopus and saw that it had stopped, and it was time to stop having a rest and get himself dressed. Only some of the words rhyme with octopus. On every octo foot he put an octosoctopus. But in his hurry, one foot got put not into an octosoctopus, but into an electric plug socket. And the octopus got a nasty electric shocktopus. and they had to call the Octopus, and the Octopus couldn't get in to give any help or medicine because the door was Loctopus. So the Octopus bashed the door to the floor, and the cure was simple as could be: a nice, refreshing cup of hot choctopus with the lid on. And that was that hot choctopus line was donated to me by my friend Helen Rawlinson. So bee, red, amoeba, duck, frog, octopus. R is rain. Now it's raining here. I'm actually not in Bradford doing this. So this is the wonders of the machines that I can speak to you from my little home in Hackney, and it's raining here in North London. Near where I was born. I was born down the road about 1.5 miles down that way. And my dad was born in France, and as I said to you before, I really love French things because it was part of my dad's thing. And I know that when I go into schools, there's so many other languages, and I try to get us to celebrate those languages and other languages that are spoken at home, should I say. We try and get some of the little bits of those languages. Sometimes there's so many, maybe 7, 8, 9 languages in one classroom that we can share. Anyway, so rain. This is a poem about rain, and here's another little character. He's hiding now. Where are you? Here he is. Here he is, Monsieur Robinet. So here's a little character because Monsieur Robinet, and again, just cutting out bits. So this looks. So just a sheet like that. And then you make these bits there, and then you put another of those clips and pin that through. So Monsieur Robinet is going to do you his rain poem. So he's been to Rouen, a place in northern France, and he's annoyed with the rain. So yeah, you can make these characters to say your poems. So la pluie, le parapluie, samedi à vendredi, et si vous n'aimez pas la pluie, Rouen n'est pas très bien choisi. And a rough translation of that is rain, rain every day, umbrellas never put away, and if you're not so keen on rain, don't go to Rouen again. So, bee, red, amoeba, duck, frog, octopus, rain, and last letter in our Bradford part is, here we are. So our last D is, see if you can guess what it's going to be. What do you think our last D is going to be?
Dog.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Dasypus novemcinctus. Brilliantly guessed. This is which is the biological name for an armadillo. And I'm going to rest there. So Bradford actually is more known for sheep because of the wonderful wool production. So there's 3 sheep we could have there. We've got that sheep, this sheep, or this sheep. I don't know which sheep. Sheep A, sheep B, sheep C. What sheep should we have? Any preference?
A.
Which is A? Is that?
Yeah.
Okay. So there you are. Enjoy the sheep for a moment because we're going to put the armadillo there. But they all get on very well, these animals. So there we are. So this is a song about an armadillo. And I actually started writing this in Bradford when I was at university, and what year was 1973. The very first, and some of the lines have changed, but the very first line is the same line as I wrote. Armadillo. So there's an armadillo. Brillo pad. Some of it is something people may not know what a Brillo pad is. It's something you use to clean your armadillo. And this armadillo comes from somewhere beginning with P, and it's not Preston, it's Peru. My mummy, she bought me an armadillo. I kissed him and I kept him under my pillow, and I cleaned him with a Brillo pad. He was shiny and tiny, and he came from Peru. His name was Amadeus, but we used to call him Toby. He had a suit of armour and he burrowed about the hills and the daffodils, he turned them inside out. And me mummy used to shout at him when he came home covered in graffiti. He was an insectivorous creature, the teacher used to say, and the dog next door, the carnivore, would sometimes come and play. We had races and chases down by the riverside, and sometimes we'd go swimming, and sometimes we wouldn't. And he had ants and beetles for dinner every day. Them creepy crawlies, he could put 'em away, and he did his indoor doings in his indoor doings tray. But one day in the winter, when the willow tree was bare, I looked under my pillow, there was no armadillo there. So I ran downstairs and I said to my mummy, 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 where's he gone? She was having a game of rummy and she looked up and she said, John, go and put some clothing on, you're nearly 24. I said, Mummy, it's an emergency, and I ran out in the raw. I ran down to the riverside and in a rowing boat I saw Toby in the distance with the dog next door. There's the dog next door, a bit of the dog next door. So I think we've probably got time just for one more, I think. So the Guillemot, we're just going to do the wings today. So I think there are other movements, but today we're going to do the wings for the Guillemot poem. So when I say the word Guillemot, if you could do your Guillemot wings. So this is from the point of view of the Guillemot, which is a bird that goes fishing. It's an amazing fishing bird. And if you go to Bempton, up near Bridlington in Yorkshire, you can see hundreds and hundreds of these birds. I am a Guillemot. I use my bill a lot. I get the fish, this bill. I get the fish out of the wet. I eat my fill a lot. I live on ledges, vertical edges. Eating wise, I do not know what veg is. Don't give me sherbet, give me a turbot. My appetite for fish I cannot curb it. I am a Guillemot. I know the drill a lot. I drill into the drink and get the drink and not the ink upon my quill a lot. So you don't thrill a lot. Well, listen, humans, very soon you will a lot. Did you know that I can go so deep? I've been seen from the porthole of a submerged submarine 130 meters under. I don't think so. Miss it and blink so. I come in hard and I'm able to sink so. I am a Guillemot. I do my specky recce from my rocky windowsill a lot. I don't do nesting when I am resting. I can sleep while I am standing on one leg and so it doesn't roll off when I stretch my wings or stroll off. I've got an egg that is conical and eccentrically weighted so it don't fall off the edge of the cliff face into the water with all the jellyfish and all the other fish. I am a Guillemot. I find the fishes tend to lose 1-0 a lot. I'm a Guillemot.
Hello everyone and welcome to Potatoes, Carrots and Poetry with John Hegley. My name's Joelle Taylor and I've got the amazing job today of interviewing John and finding out a little bit more about his career and how he started. All I know so far is that he began busking on the streets of Hull, busked again in London, and then over time has created 10 books of published poetry. He's been on TV and radio, and over time has become a national treasure and one of the UK's favourite poets. So welcome, John. How are you today?
Yeah, I mean, it's raining and I love the rain. I don't know, how is it, where are you, Joel?
I'm in London. I'm in East London at the moment.
Yeah, is it raining?
Yeah, it's very rainy.
It's raining.
And I think you're the perfect kind of complement to a rainy day. What you don't know, we've known each other for a couple of years. What you probably don't know about me is I first saw you when I was a kid at home in Lancashire, and you popped up on my television in a band called the Popticians. Can you tell me about that time? What was that?
So, yeah, when I started out, people used to shout out at me about my glasses. You'd say, "Oi, Specky," and I thought, well, I'll say stuff about being about my glasses, and so I used to sing songs about my glasses on my own on the street. So people used to be busking, and they would do escapology, and I actually tried to escape from my glasses. Actually, it was one of my bits of my act. And then I met some musicians called Dr. Fantasy's Fallout Daredevils, and we became a combo. And they would play their music behind my poems and songs about glasses. And so we would we went to Amsterdam, and we did some John Peel sessions, which were at the time it was wonderful to do that. We did 2 sessions on the BBC.
That's right. So this was in the 80s, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was early 80s, 1980. I think 81. I think autumn of 81 we first met each other.
Oh wow, amazing. Well, what made you decide to write poetry?
I mean, it always felt a very natural thing. You know, it wasn't this big decision. It was just sort of like now and then I'd write a poem. Songs were really more my thing, and songs have always been an important part of it. But now and then I would write a poem. I wrote some when I was in Bradford, when I was at university, and I remember my first published poem was actually in Luton Central Library magazine when I was about 10. So we were encouraged at school to write poems, and I mean, I used to love just in the playground. Do you like jelly? I'll punch you in the belly. Do you like toast? Go upstairs and kiss the ghost. Say knife and fork, knife and fork. Teacher told you not to talk. I used to love the wordplay, and so we were encouraged to make our own. And I've always loved just wordplay.
Yeah.
But wordplay is in songs as well as in poems.
So what kind of artists at that time, early on, can you think of that inspired you and the way that you work with poetry music?
Spike Milligan, certainly. John Betjeman on his poems. I remember when we had those on the telly. Harry Worth. So I've always a comedic, having a funny part of it. I think if you can say something serious in a funny way, it's a bonus, really. So yeah. Just because you say something funny doesn't mean it isn't serious.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point to make. And this the themes in your work have been consistent over the last 30 odd years. Can you talk a little bit about those and why you're attracted to those?
Well, I tend to talk about the ordinary things, glasses. I mean, the glasses, people used to shout out about glasses, so that was an obvious thing to choose. But potatoes, fig rolls, biscuits, the ordinary things. But again, from the ordinary, you can come out to sort of wider things. I mean, you can eat a biscuit at a sad time, for instance, can't you? Yeah. There's a bigger situation, so you might start with a little thing. But you might look at that situation when you're eating the biscuit, and sometimes a biscuit can be very important to somebody. For instance, a cup of tea and a biscuit sometimes can be such a crucial thing in a life. Yeah.
So these really simple things become metaphors in a way that, explain bigger things.
Yeah. And metaphors, and sometimes just a sort of a kind of almost what's called an incidental thing that's there while a big thing's happening.
Right.
And a metaphor as well. For instance, I've got a poem which I called I'm a Potato. I'm not a normal person, whatever that may be. There is something very, very vegetable about me. This human skin I'm skulking in is only there for show. I'm a potato. When I told my father it was something of a blow, he called me a dirty so-and-so. He kicked up quite a racket and he grabbed me by the jacket. He said, won't you pack it in? And I said, won't you be my father, not my foe? And he said, no, you're a potato. When I was a schoolboy, I never knew why. I was so useless at cross-country running, but now I know why I was so slow and why they put me back in the sack race. I'm a potato.
That's absolutely brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. And I think,
Joelle, you say that it's about, so that you can see that as a metaphor if you like, but it depends, or you can just take it as a poem about being a potato.
Yeah. And I think this bears in mind, like poetry and music work across all classes and races and backgrounds to kind of join people together. And I'm trying to think, one of my favourite ever performances I saw you do was at Glastonbury Festival. And obviously you work a lot with kids and with young people, but you've also got a massive adult following. So I'm curious to know, is there a gig you did, an event you were at, which is your all-time favourite?
I mean, I think the Glastonbury shows are ones that really do stick in my mind, because I mean, starting out on the street, because you'd have a mixed audience, so you get used to performing to a mixture of folk. Mm-hmm. And at Glastonbury, but you tend to get shows tend to be, when I'm doing them, either more adult or kid orientated shows. So I do love to perform where I've got to sort of try and think of everybody. And so, but it's the same as having a conversation. You don't always have to include everybody. You know, when you're sitting around the dinner table, sometimes there's bits that are for just two adults having a chat. You don't always have to include everybody. Sometimes just this isn't particularly for you. Just sit there and wait for the next bit. But the Glastonbury shows have been, and to doing the Edinburgh Festival, coming back each year and having to. Because this job, as you know, there's not things that particularly mark the years. And so to have things mark the years is an important thing. So Glastonbury marks the year, but even more so because I've done Edinburgh more times than I've done Glastonbury. Each summertime that has marked my year.
Yeah, and one of the amazing things I've found is that even though not everybody has to like or understand perfectly what's being said, is the incredible community feel at the events, you know. So you do have over here a few kind of 7-8-year-olds, but they're with their grandparents and everybody is joining in. I think for me, I found that really inspiring as an artist, because that's what you want to do, is try and connect with people and for them to connect with each other.
Yeah, that's a lovely part of it, actually. Well, that is a really lovely part of it, and that's a really good thing you say there about connecting with each other and feeling not just with the performer. Yeah, that's really important.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the part of certainly live performance and poetry that we don't think about enough. So going back, so you've been busking on the streets for a while. When was your big break? What did that look like, or doesn't it ever feel like that?
I think doing the John Peel sessions for me was the most important thing, because I used to listen to John Peel, and to be on that program, and it was, we need to be. I mean, acceptance is an important thing, and it was an acceptance that what we did was worthwhile. It was valued by somebody whose judgment you considered important. And it's the same, another moment, for instance, when the teacher said to me, I wrote this poem and I read it out when I was about 10. It was a poem that went in the school library magazine. I can only remember a bit of it. The cave is hot. It's about witches, called Witch's Dell, which is a sort of woodland. The cave is hot, the pot is boiling, the ugly snakes around it coiling. One witch has a wooden spoon, another rides upon a broom. I can't remember the rest of it. But the kid next to me that said, John Nolan it was, he said, it sounds like a real poem, miss. And the teacher said, it is a real poem. And that moment of the teacher saying to me that I'd written a real poem, and we both, you know this, the teachers know this, the children know this, that being told that you are good at something is so important. Yeah,
and it gives you permission in a way to carry on and explore things. So like, there's one thing being live performers, but over the years, we've now got the opportunity to publish our works, and you're one of the pioneers of that, I would think, along with Benjamin Zephaniah and that generation of performance poets. How did the first book come about? What did you do? Did you get lots of poems together and try someone?
Linda Leatherbarrow came up to me at a show in 1983, I think it was, and says, have you got a book? I said no. She said, would you like to do one? And Linda did lino cuts, and so she made a book with pictures. As I say, the pictures are very important, pictures alongside my poems, and that was the first book that I made. And then I made my own books after Linda did. I thought very exciting to make my own books, so I made 2 books of my own, and then a publisher started doing them. But I did a lot of copies of those books of my own. So make your own books. Yeah, and I think that's a really exciting thing now for the kids watching this at home, is that you can do it now. Now we are not at school. Why don't you get some poems together inspired by what John has written about, and listening to the names he's spoken about as well? Maybe look into those and get your own little books together. So this kind of, I've got a couple more questions for you. I don't want to take up too much of your time. I'm just really... Joelle, I'm excited about this, what we've just said about making the book. So just look, okay. This, I know I hadn't thought of this beforehand, but a way of making a book is folding a piece of paper, because you could do this with that. This isn't the ideal shape. So I'd have had a sheet of A4 if I'd have known I was going to do this. But anyway, this isn't A4 and it's hard to tear. But you can make a little fold-out book like this, and so you could, for instance, you could have B, and you could do the poem about B, R, and it goes all A, D, F, O, R, D, but do your own, have your own something for each letter, and do Bradford again, do some other words, but you can make a little book like that, and then photocopy that, save yourself save the money you spent for Christmas, and have it for yourself.
Yeah.
These as Christmas presents.
Brilliant idea, brilliant. And do a show as well, get started. So in terms of advice to the young writers, if you had like a checklist of things that you would suggest, what would they be? To get
First is read, is the old one, Joel. Read. Yeah. That's the first thing. Yeah. Michael Rosen's, this book here is a very good book. Michael Rosen's A to Z children's poetry is a lovely book. A wonderful novel is called Marianne Dreams, which I would really recommend, which is about two children who are in bed, which are very, at this time, who can't go out. It's very appropriate, by Catherine Storr. It's lovely. I would say read is very important. Play around with words, take a jumble of words at random, look up 5 words, write them down, and try and make up a poem or a story with those words. Read and play.
Yeah. Well, John, it's been absolutely amazing talking to you. I'm a huge fan, as you know, and I'm really looking forward to what you create next.
Thank you, Joel. Where was it you were living in Lancashire when you...
I was living in Accrington.
Accrington.
And I used to listen, just so the kids, I need to say this, John Peel, 10 p.m. every night, changed our lives of your grandparents. We used to listen to it, and it was counterculture. So on the charts, you had all the pop bands, but on John Peel, 10 o'clock, you had what was really happening in culture in the country. So try and check that out. Thanks so much again, John. Yeah, I'm looking forward to leaving lockdown and coming to another performance.
Thank you, Joanne.
Thanks.